Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into the C Show. You got your boy Chris here, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Alabama. I got here with me a young man, Dakota Taylor, who is a communist. Dakota, how are you? Thank you for coming on. And did I say that correctly? Is that what you go by?
Well, to answer your first question, I'm feeling fine today. This heat wave is a little much, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
But as far as labels go, I, like a lot of Marxists, was radicalized on the street. I don't have a higher education, but I would categorize myself as an anarcho-communist with a heavy influence from Proudhon. But the labels and the academia surrounding the labels are very gatekeeping, and communism is an ideology of the working poor, which are typically not a part of the higher education. Not that they don't understand it, just that they were never given the tools to acquire it.
My first question then would be: was Marx and Engels and Lenin were these not educated men?
They were, well, I'm not so sure about Vladimir. Vladimir was radicalized by his older brother, who was very educated, but Lenin was no uneducated man for sure. But he didn't acquire his education, before his brother died.
Okay, so then the people who have been the, I would say, general secretaries, these are not uneducated people.
No, but it took someone that had a higher education to see the problems and the ills caused by capitalism after the Industrial Revolution, to diagnose them and to offer a solution. That did take a higher education in order to formulate. However, it's an ideology that is better. It better serves the proletariat or the working poor.
Okay, how come they never benefit from it? It seems like the general secretary and whatever different names they give themselves, they seem to always accumulate the wealth in these communist nations. How does that take place?
Well, one, we need to get a few facts in place first. Much of what's been advertised to the American people as communism or socialism are authoritarian regimes. Also, any country that attempts to establish socialistic properties or anything, especially if it's a nation where the majority are people of color, they have been systematically attacked by a vast propaganda campaign by the United States. And why wouldn't they want to? Our country is shamelessly run by the rich. Why wouldn't they want to demonize the only ideology that could take away their power?
But we still haven't addressed the question yet.
You're right. All right, let's look. The question is, in my point of view, moot point, because the regimes that are devastating to their people, like the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia and the deeply unsettling cultural revolutions in China, those were caused by authoritarian regimes led by men who were leaders of cults of personality. But there are some very successful socialistic nations like Cuba after the death of Fidel Castro, when his cult of personality faded. Cuba runs very well today, in despite of a U.S. trade embargo and a demonizing campaign against their government. The Cuban people are very happy.
They are. Is that why you see so many of them on boats coming across the water there to get to Florida? Are that happy?
Well, see, they're as happy as they can be in a nation that's been completely blocked off by us, their closest and most frugal neighbor.
And when you were talking
And-
about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And in a very poor nation, they've still done very well. The homeless population in Cuba is almost non-existent. They have some of the best doctors in the world. In despite of the embargo, they completed a COVID vaccine entirely on their own.
Poor nation, you hit it right on the head, moving right along. Didn't you forget about a nation that was very authoritative and ruthless to their people? That
I believe you're talking about the Soviet Union.
yes, I believe I am talking about the Soviet Union.
Well, the Soviet Union was a nation of extreme wartime and extreme ethnic backgrounds that were mushed together and held together in a collective that didn't want to be. Modern communism recognizes the rights of indigenous peoples to govern themselves, like the Taino people of Puerto Rico and the Filipinos. But the Soviet Union were collectivized, and that was their mindset. But a lot of these people saw the Russians as invaders and fought against collectivization, leading to breakdowns in the systems that would have been communism. Also, the Soviet Union did way better at rebuilding itself, brought itself all the way to a world superpower right alongside the United States after being entirely devastated by Germany in World War II.
I think that the reason or what that would help that is they have some of the world's best resources in Russia. Yes, they did suffer a lot through that war.
They lost the most civilians.
Yes, and was that by the hands of the Germans, or did some of that also come at the hands of Stalin?
Oh, you're talking about the Holodomor after the war. Holodomor was what they call the famine that ravaged the Ukraine. That leads back to what I was talking about earlier, the fights against collectivization. And yes, they were wrong. However, the incident has been entirely upplayed in this propaganda war that I'm talking about. Holodomor was not even a term that was widely used or written in literature until the 90s.
What happened in the 30s? Wasn't there some purges that took place?
Oh, the Stalinistic purges?
Yeah,
I mean, of course, yes, right? In a vast political landscape such as the size of the Soviet Union, Stalin had what he perceived to be enemies amongst his political landscape. Now, yeah, it went a little overboard, of course, and Stalin was one of those leaders that we talked that had a cult of personality. It was no better than, say, Francisco Franco in Spain, or fascist Hitler, Mussolini, or even I would go so far as to say the cults of personality that garner the executive branch of the government today in the United States, such as Barack Obama, Trump. These people had vast followings and were more like celebrities than presidents, even though they had presidential power. Imagine if they had the power to do whatever they wanted.
Well, first of all, Russia, Soviet Union, they may not have did so bad in World War II. Had Stalin not wiped out most of their officer corps during some purges. You compared. You just make the comparison of Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, and American presidents. Did you really just make that comparison?
All right. But the comparison wasn't made in their actions or any similarities other than the way that the civilian population viewed their leaders. And yeah, I do.
There was, up until, yes, Reagan was a popular president. Clinton, Barack Obama had a following. There's never been a cult personality around an American president until there was Donald Trump.
You're right. Yeah, and I mean nothing of that magnitude for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of a stretch to compare the rest of them to somebody like Stalin. They also did not have to force these people with a cult personality by the bayonet in their back, as what goes on in North Korea still today.
I mean, you're right. They didn't point guns at our heads, but every person that is a part of a ideological, sexual, or racial minority in America definitely felt under threat by his supporters during the presidency. And
We're
yeah,
talking about Donald Trump.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I lived it, buddy.
Well, I thought the whole talking about President or former President Trump. We're talking about communism. So we have now had how many nations have went up under communism and now have never stayed with that economic philosophy. When you look at China now today, they no longer have a command or directive economy. Neither does Vietnam, who the United States went to war with. We're not really sure what's going on in North Korea.
How in the world do you expect to build an economy based on the free trade of labor and resources when a monetary economy and the world trade system itself is run by the United States? The UN is headquartered in New York. Of course, here, the seat of capitalism, the jewel of the elite, here in America, where we wiped out 90% of the native population and just built. Yeah, it's been hard to build a socialistic society. The CIA has been involved in government assassinations, election riggings, overthrowings. They even released boll weevils into the Soviet Union's grain fields to eat the crops.
Yeah, I'm not sure I recall in history when socialism was trying to be set up when the Native Americans.
Okay, listen. Yes, I'm talking about different periods of time. Yes. But these comparisons that I'm making and the problems that you're drawing between them, you're not following the actual point I'm trying to make. Yes, they're nuanced. They're not exactly comparable.
Not at
But
all.
the part of what I'm trying to make, yeah, like explaining America is the jewel of capitalism. And the reason it is so is because European settlers came over here, wiped out the people that were here, took all of their land and resources, and built with them. And then we've imposed our political systems on the rest of the world.
So let me get this straight. Some settlers from Europe came here and wiped out the native population and built this conglomerate, and now they've forced their views on the rest of the world. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Absolutely. I mean, the Marshall Plan.
And Great Britain was the ruled the seas until World War II, when the United States took over as the world power. So, how is the United States to blame for all this again?
Okay, but where did the United States come from? European settlers.
Well, not all from
tons
Europe.
of no. I mean, yeah.
I mean, Portugal was the first.
Is Portugal not in Europe?
But they're not Britain.
No, they're not.
Right.
But I mean,
and the Spaniards.
But these colonial European powers and colonialization that ruled the world. The sun never set on the British Empire.
Still does not.
Set up systems in place to disenfranchise people of color and the working poor the world over, and we're definitely seeing the effects of it today.
We're seeing the effects of what Britain did.
Of what Europe did during the age of colonization. And you cannot argue
Shouldn't
against
Europe
that.
be the dominant power then? I mean, with all those countries?
No, because, the wealthy slave owners and stuff got tired of the crown taxing them, and they came here to make a government free of those regulations.
Well, first of all, slavery didn't come to the United States until 1619.
The United States, yes, but the Caribbean islands, South America.
So I don't really think that's a good comparison either. I mean, and then the British ended their slave trade years after that. So I mean,
yes, by the time the United States had the debate, it was well over in Europe. which is why we didn't have European influences in the American Civil War.
You had many European influences in the American Civil War.
We didn't have any direct military involvement sanctioned by its government sent here. They wouldn't do it.
That is true. They never put boots on the ground, but there was
There were favoritism by sides, buying and trading of goods, selling of weapons. Yeah.
there was God, I can't think off the top of my head. When they arrested the British diplomats and the Confederate diplomats, and it almost caused a war. But anyway, I digress there. Let's get back to communism. You know, I hear Venezuela is really nice this time of year, but yet we have problems with illegals coming to the border. If communism's so great, why are they not going to Venezuela?
Well, again, you're just asking me the same question different ways. Let's talk about South America. And
yes, let's talk about South America.
And how the United States essentially plundered South America for its resources, allowed corporations to run as if they were governments down in South America, and of course we see the effects now. Looking back on Venezuela, the CIA tried to overthrow the government, did rig their election, been proven, on top of watching money from the U.S. go down there to fund Central American drug cartels to fight the Venezuelan people into a submission. Of course, Venezuela is a hell ground. What else does the United States do in countries that go to communism? Korea, Vietnam, the Mexican Zapatista movement. I mean, literally looking at any time a popular movement springs up, the U.S. sends in destructive forces.
Would you define that as a popular movement when a small vanguard tries to take over?
Are we sure it was a small vanguard? Because I remember watching millions of people in the street in favor of their government.
Well, it depends on which one we're talking about. There was a small vanguard in Russia. Chairman Mao, that was not...
We're calling the Red Army of China a small vanguard.
When it was going on, fighting the nationalists, they were fighting a guerrilla warfare until they took over and won. I remember Chairman Mao saying, come at them like fishes in the sea. Now, yes, it's a power. Same with North Korea is a different story. Vietnam, you had a guerrilla warfare that was taking place. The NBA never could match the United States in any battle that was fought. So, yeah, I don't see where, you're talking about a popular movement.
Well, of course, it's a popular movement fought by the population. We don't have military training. If they came down on us here, buddy, what are we going to do? We're going to go to the mountains, get the heat, and wait on them to walk underneath the trees. I mean, that's just how we fight. That's how civilians fight.
You're talking about if the United States came down on its civilians?
Yeah.
I don't really foresee that happening.
You don't? It happens all the time. Ruby Falls, Waco, Move, 1985. Movements from the far left and the far right are attacked and eradicated.
Ruby Ridge?
Ruby Falls? Ruby Ridge?
Ruby Falls is in Gadsden, I believe.
That's right. Ruby Ridge? No, Ruby Falls is in Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, Ruby Ridge. Yeah, dude, I mean, people that have outlying political beliefs that arm themselves and hole up somewhere are usually hunted down and shot by the government, and it's politicized for a little while, causes some reactions, like McVeigh's response to Waco when he bombed the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Yeah, there are those, but the propaganda campaign always paints it as isolated incidents of crazy people, not the U.S. controlling.
So this propaganda campaign, it's the reason why communism has never worked in any country that it's been tried in?
Well, the propaganda campaign is why you don't think it's worked or even started to try.
I mean, I would love to see it.
Wouldn't we all, buddy? If the United States would quit trying to destroy
we watched
it.
The entire Western Europe or Eastern Europe fall along with the Soviet Union.
Of course, it was easy to break up the Soviet Union. Like I said,
Well,
most people there thought the Russians were invaders and thought they had no sense.
Took what 70 years for it to fall or something like that along those lines.
It took years and years of insurrectionists movements and
you had the
dissemination of
Poland, you had the
population.
the Hungarian uprising in what 68, and I think you had the Czech in 56. Where was these other uprisings that was taking place? That
Romania, Czechoslovakia,
Well,
Bosnia and Herzegovina, which at the time would have been Slovakia.
Yugoslavia did not go along with, was not up under the influence of Russia.
But they
and
were a part of the
Union.
Soviet Union, yeah.
Can't even think of the ruler's name, but he did not adhere to Stalin's rule. Yes, you did have the small uprising in Hungary, and they came in there and crushed them with tanks, so they didn't last too long.
I mean, it's just the same principle on the other side of the fence that I was talking about earlier with the United States killing its far radical political populations or small groups.
Mm-hmm. And what happened to the Soviet command economy, as well as Eastern Europe? It kind of felt like dominoes, as I recall, back in the late 80s, and then the Soviet Union in the early 90s. So it was a huge economic collapse there.
Yes.
Again,
like I said
where was the
earlier,
money
you can't
went
really
to?
create a free economy based on the free trade of labor
Mhm.
and resources
And you
without
also
monetary
can't
capital.
You also can't create money either. I love hearing people like Bernie Sanders say free healthcare, free college, free housing.
Bernie Sanders doesn't talk about free health care or free this or that.
Yeah.
He talks about reallocation of our resources. You know the several $trillion defense budget we have where it didn't even defend the Capitol.
Reallocation, that is a scary term there.
Oh, well, then let me use a better one for you. This is a favorite one of our, my comrades. Redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, that's even more scary of a term. I'd like to go back and touch on that. Sanders is talking about free this, free that, and they don't make free money.
No, but it needs to be moved from places that it's not being used, places that it's being hidden and hoarded and given special interests,
as far
and
as
just being captured at the top.
United States defense budget only makes up, I think, 15% of their budget for the last fiscal year.
Yes, but it absolutely is misused.
The majority of the United States money goes to social programs like Social Security, Medicare, among other things. I think that makes up around 47% of the United States budget that is being spent. So there's your socialism right there.
And isn't it working? Don't old people and children get fed?
This was not supposed to, when it was created, this was not supposed to be a end-all retirement when Social Security was enacted in 1939. People did not live like they did today. 65 years old was very, very old. Now today people are living 95 and 100.
Of course, modern medicine is both a blessing and a curse.
It was the greatest Ponzi scheme that was ever created in history, and it's going to go bankrupt here very soon. You just don't have enough people paying into it, and then what are you going to do? One other point I would like to make: you talk about the 1%.
The elite.
The elite, the 1%,
the
1%ers. They make up 0.3% of the population out of
Haven't they always? Not everybody can be a king.
Out of 400 million people, 0.3%. 1/3 of 1% of these people fall in that.
And how much of the United States wealth do they own?
So you're expecting them to
How much wealth do they own?
You're expecting them to pay for everybody else's. The math just doesn't add up.
You're damn right. I'm tired of people sitting there with crowns on their heads, putting a boot on everybody else's neck and not doing shit.
Talk about those evil billionaires. The United States has 576. Yes, 576 people out of 400 million. One other point I would like to make: 97% of the taxes were paid by the top 50% earners
Are we sure?
Yes, we can look
Because
that
I
up
feel
for
like
sure.
they get tax write-offs, and I feel like Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, paid $0 in taxes.
And that is people making above $42,000 a year. $42,000 and below, they paid 3% of the taxes. The Trump tax cuts in 2018, 2017, they actually did away with a lot of the write-offs, the individual deductions. So there goes that argument. There's also something else you need to take in fact or consider in here. The wealthy get the biggest tax cuts because they pay the most taxes. They're getting hit with 35% off the top. That's not counting their state income taxes.
But then they get these charitable write-offs and everything else that they get to do to manipulate the tax system. You cannot tell me that the money system in this country is not rigged.
We're never talking about, and they also pay sales taxes, property taxes. So that's why they're getting the largest tax cuts, because they pay the most taxes.
They also live like fucking kings.
They also are the ones that create jobs in this country. So
create jobs.
Who owns who controls the means of production?
Yeah, who controls the means of the production?
Yeah, the wealthy does.
Exactly.
So
my problem.
Now you're going to take the money away from them, so they cannot create jobs anymore.
No, we're taking away the means of production. We can run that factory without that bastard up there in that office sitting down handing orders and eating fucking lunch and getting the secretary to blow.
Try not to use that type of language, please.
Sorry.
There has to be somebody in charge.
Not really.
Yes, really. You have to have
democratic systems.
There's only been one true democracy, and they still had somebody in charge. You have to have a decision maker somewhere.
You mean a tiebreaker? Because if everybody votes, that's where it should land.
So now we went from communism to a democracy?
Okay. There are democratic communists. And yes, I believe in a popular system in which everyone has one vote that counts, in a system that's unriggable and unmanipulable, and I believe that would be the best way to run our society.
Like a constitutional federal republic
is open to manipulation, exactly like ours is today, with lobbyists, special interests, and all the money that we have in politics.
That's not going to happen in that type of system.
Okay, so you're saying that a direct democracy is more manipulable than a republic in which you only have a handful of people you got to pay off instead of the whole population?
I'm not saying either one. Do you think everybody's going to vote in one of these? Absolutely not.
In a direct democracy, I believe everybody absolutely would.
Why? They don't vote in a representative republic?
Because our vote doesn't count in this republic.
Oh, it does not count?
Absolutely not. And if you think it does, then we really disagree on several things, and I think we do.
Then I guess you're going along with you probably believe with the Trump people that the race was stolen then, right?
I believe that every election for the past 50 years has been predetermined, rigged, and stolen from the American people. Yeah, for sure.
And how are you going to pull off something like this?
How would we pull off something like this?
Yeah.
Well, again, not all of us have the answers, but I think we should start having frank discussions about how.
We've got off talking. Let's go back to that we've never covered this. Communism, where has it been successful at again? One country?
You keep asking this, and I keep telling you, of course, nowhere. But there are reasons why.
I gave you every opportunity, and you didn't take it. Could it be the fact that Marx and Engels never meant for it to take place in agrarian societies?
Absolutely not.
That it was supposed to take place in an industrialized nation?
Exactly. He absolutely thought that the British peasants were going to go run that crown, son. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, it didn't. It happened in farming communities.
Right. So then you had a form of Leninism. And what happened with Leninism? They backed away very quickly from that in the new economic policy, I believe, of
Stalin's 5-year plans. Yes.
1922. That's for I think pretty sure it's before Stalin took power. That Lenin had to roll it back because it was obviously not working.
Well, it had never been tried before.
and
I mean, yes,
that's
this is an experiment,
it had
and
been-
nobody is saying that communism is perfect.
It had been
All we're
tried
saying is that
before.
it's
The
a step in
Paris,
the right direction because the way we're going, we're going to kill this planet, and there are kids starving in the streets while we throw away food.
the Paris Commune of 1870 had actually been tried before. So
Okay, well, that was just a gross sort of small, isolated Parisian neighborhood, and it would have worked had the French military not surrounded and shot. I mean, yes, the ruling class struggle has been a fixture of our history.
and the
There's
seems
always-
like it always rises to the top in the Central Committee, where the wealth always gets concentrated at.
Of course, human
Uh-huh.
greed takes over. I mean, yes, it's not a perfect system. I
Hence the
just
reason
got that out of my mouth.
Hence the reason it's going to.
But it's a step in the right direction.
Hence the reason it's always going to fail.
That's an opinion.
That is a fact. We've seen it time and time again. You're talking about starving children in the
Streets while Cracker Barrel throws away enough food to feed them all.
And how's that working in North Korea, where
North Korea has no food, but they're an isolationist country.
they're also a communist country too, right? Or what would you describe them as?
An authoritarian regime run by the Kim family. That's a crazy. That's Juche. They don't even call themselves communist anymore.
Yeah, that seems to always happen in every one. Nobody's going to voluntarily give up power.
Isn't that a problem with humanity and not so much economic systems?
Hence the reason
that you think communism is like a fantasy ideology?
Yes, a pie in the sky dream where everybody's equal and everybody is getting along. That's why you no longer say things like he, him, she, her.
We do still say those things, and but we've always used singular forms of they. But if we're going to get into the gender construct, then I think we'll have a fight about maturity, which I don't want to have today.
No, I'm just pointing out that is making meaning that everybody is now supposed to be equal, and there is no.
We're all supposed to be human,
difference,
and respected.
That takes communism also takes away the right or the drive to achieve when the person at McDonald's is making the same thing as the doctor who is working on you. There's no incentive.
There will always be doctors because there are people who want to heal. And if people can be doctors that want to be doctors without economic barriers, then we'll have people who want to heal being doctors instead of people who wanted to be rich pricks operating on people's brains.
No incentive to be a doctor when you can
Humans have natural innovativeness. They want to achieve, create, and succeed. And they'll do it for the fucking clout. They won't do
let's kind of watch the
sorry.
Yeah, that's why the Soviet Union fell so far behind the United States, technologically wise, from the 1950s on, is because of their great incentive to do better, right?
We've talked about how they were rebuilding themselves from being entirely devastated from a war, how their population was completely wiped out.
In the 50s, they had, their space program was actually ahead of the United States. Their planes were better.
Why did you just contradict your own point?
No, I'm not. What I said was, since the 1950s, Russia has fell further and further behind, technological wise, because there's no incentive to do better.
Again, like I said, all of this discussion is simply just going to be a disagreement, because I believe humans have a natural and innate ability to create, and the reason we don't do so now, the reason there are lazy people right now, is societal causes, depression, things like that, caused by us having economic barriers on trying to succeed.
So it's always society's fault then.
No, it's the economic system. Society is a great thing. The first thing a human being does when we're born into this world is cry for help.
Mm-hmm. And when the child cries enough, it realizes that it gets a reaction because the mother runs to it. So the child continues to cry. and that carries on throughout
Why shouldn't
a
every
lifetime.
human being get all the help they need to be the best they can be?
There's plenty of help available for people who want it in the United States.
And the people who don't want it, that's a mental issue caused by
No,
shit.
that is not a mental issue.
Yeah, it is.
No,
it's depression. It's a systemic problem.
No, you're
the
making
system's not working for me, so I'm not going to work with the system.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
It does.
Yeah, so I mean, at least you could have been a Trotskyist, or that would have been more than I mean, I don't even know what.
You've never even asked me to describe my particular brand of socialism.
I believe that small, centralized populations is the way humans were supposed to live. You say communism has never worked, but Marx got his ideas for collectivization and collective use of resources from watching Native American, African, and South American tribes operate small, close-knit societies in which everybody lived communal lives, sharing resources.
Not everybody wants to do that. Why are you? You're going to come force me to go live in a communal right? No, absolutely not.
Well, that's where the anarchy comes in. I believe that the people who want to live in small societies that produce and provide for themselves should, and then there are also people that can go stand on about 10 acres with a shotgun and tell nobody to cross that line, and if they do, shoot them and it's fine.
Mm-hmm. And what about when the 50 people with shotguns come there and take it? You have to have law and order.
Of course you do.
And structure and society.
Yes.
And leaders.
No, we have to have collectivized police forces.
That's called vigilante justice.
Is it vigilante justice if we're policing our own communities and it's done correctly? Of course, there's no oversight.
Yes, that is vigilante justice when you have people enforcing the law and taking it in their own hands.
But what if the people are the law?
I'm not sure I understand what that means.
The reason that I think my generation could be one of the first to take this step towards collectivization is every time we've seen media evolve, we've seen human beings humanize each other. The backlash against the Vietnam War was the strongest anti-war movement the United States has seen. Why? Television. Finally, we were seeing images in rolling color of these Vietnamese people being shot and raped in the streets. Well, now we have the internet. And not so much are we just seeing these people in China, we're able to message them and talk to them. And they're more than just images on a TV screen. They're really people, humanized. They're not words on a newspaper. They are humans with lives.
No offense, but your generation can't crank a lawnmower.
I can crank anything you hand me, buddy.
Much less start a revolution.
I think you guys underestimate us quite a bit.
Well, I won't be around here to see it, but it will definitely be the collapse of humanity as we now know it.
Quite a strong opinion there, buddy, but it's just that, an opinion.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this?
No, sir. There's nothing else I want to argue about right now.
Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
It was a pleasure.
And I enjoyed the talk, and we will meet again soon one day. And I have to bring you back on during the next